We're moving on to the cornerback position, and I got to get help from a former collegiate cornerback, Amir Stewart. Welcome to the show, man. Of course, we've gone through a couple positions at this point in corners. Your backfield, your expertise. You ready to get into these corners?
I'm ready, man. I'm locked in.
But honorable mentions, these are guys that were on the brink of both of our lists. We have a guy like Tacario Davis, there for the Huskies. A guy that's a long, physical corner, good and press man, but ultimately missed the cut. Keith Abney, a bit undersized, but this is a guy that's very competitive, twitchy corner. Definitely could be on the list. Same with Dalen Everett of the Georgia Bulldogs. You have a guy like Julian Neal. And one guy that I didn't get to dive into his tape, so Amir, why do you have Devon Marshall here out of NC State to round out the honorable mentions?
And, really, I was trying to dive deep into guys that might be like under the radar, or guys that you could snag, if they go undrafted or late in the round. Devon Marshall was a guy. I watched the Shrine Bowl. I watched the one-on-one reps. I watched his tape. And I just remember, I think it was week 1 when he played against Florida State. He had 6 PBUs, 2 picks, tackles. He had a great game against the best competition. This is a guy who's a true press corner. He's physical. He's aggressive. He kind of reminds me, as far as the motor and the energy, just like Devin Witherspoon in a sense. Witherspoon is a bit better in the slot, and Witherspoon is a better athlete. But this is a guy where you can truly develop him. His off-band needs work, but he is great in press.
If he's a fraction of Devon Witherspoon, I want him on my team. I had Devon Witherspoon over Gonzalez that one year when they were both coming out slightly, but Devon was definitely number 1 for me. Let's go. Number 10 for myself. Amir's rankings will be a bit different. It's just easier if we go in order and talk about these prospects that way. At number 10 for me is D'Angelo Pons. If he was 6 foot tall, he would be maybe a top 2, top 3 corner in the class. The thing is that he's severely undersized. Not only is he underweight at 170, which he can get pushed around by the bigger wide receivers, but he's also shorter at 5'9". So that could limit his role at the NFL level to strictly just being in the slot. And again, I know he's very technically sound. I know this is a guy that has great footwork and he's very smart as far as play recognition, but at the end of the day, man, there's certain things that you just can't overcome. And I think height at the corner position, when you're playing the best of the best, is going to be one of them. Amir, give me your thoughts about D'Angelo Pons. Is he much higher for you?
Yes, so I have Pons higher. I believe I have him at 7, I believe.
Yes,
And
you do.
so Pons, you just brought it up. The height and the size, it's a major, major issue. And that's why he's not higher. If he was even like 5'11" with long arms, maybe like 185, he would be maybe, for me, it'd be like 1A, 1B. I think he's
Yeah.
that good. The athleticism, the feet, the hips, everything is great. His technique is amazing. He can play press. He can play off. He can play catch. The issue is just the size, man. It's like, when you get to the NFL, even if a receiver is 5'11", 6 foot, they're a lot more filled out, a lot more muscular. Those
Yeah.
back shoulders are going to be an issue. Those 50-50 balls are going to be issues. Receivers love to push off in the league. And, that's one of the major calls that, in the brand of football they don't call is offensive PI. The push-offs, that's going to be really, really tough. But I have him at 7 just because I just think he's still a dog. And in this scenario, I think he's that good to where I think he could overcome his size a bit, and I still think he's going to be a consistently good corner. When I look at him, I think of DJ Reed. DJ Reed is about 5'9",
Yes.
a bit
Perfect comp.
smaller, but he also was able to produce some really good years in the league. So,
Yeah, I think he's better than DJ Reed, but that was the comparison I would bring up, where he carved himself out a very nice and longer NFL career despite being undersized and really limited to the slot. Now, again, don't get me wrong. If you got a below average wide receiver, I think you can throw D'Angelo Pons on the boundary. But let's just not forget that he was maybe the leader on a team that was just 16-0 and surprised the world. Went on and won the national championship with a very underrated defense. At number 9, first off, first Tennessee volunteer of today's video. Yuck. I'm a Gators fan, and I hate to see Tennessee on my screen. But I have to admit, Colton Hood was really one of the lone bright spots of this Volunteers defense this season. I do think he brings ideal NFL size at 6 foot 195. I think he is okay in man, but he's a lot better in zone, and he might have the best ball skills in the class. Also, he's one of the better athletes. Amir, what are your thoughts on Colton Hood, a guy that's really got to step up because his counterpart was out for the majority of the season?
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. I mean, him and Jermod McCoy, they're supposed to be the best cornerback duo in the country, right? He goes down, and I thought, given that he only started 6 games, and that Jermod went down, I thought he did a good job adjusting. And you just brought up a great point. He has great size, 6'1", 195. I mean, that is great. Looking at a roster, seeing that size, I think he's a good athlete. For me, I think his tackling is a bit iffy. I think tackling on open
Good
space
point.
is a big problem for him. I think his man-to-man coverage is good. He can also play press as well. That's what they love doing at Tennessee. The issue for me is like nothing really pops out for me.
I agree.
Over the guys that's over him.
This won't make the video, but if you would disagree with anything that I have on the screen, just bring it up.
Okay.
Okay. Um, let's move on. Let's go here. Well, actually, we'll go Chris Johnson.
Okay.
All right. Hmm. Now we're jumping around a bit here, but at number 8 for me is Chris Johnson of the San Diego State Aztecs, a guy that at 6 foot 185. I think he's just a very steady, scheme versatile corner who has reliable ball skills. I think he's very smart and he wins with positioning more so than just being more athletic than his counterpart wide receiver. But ultimately, I think he's a very safe floor pick. He doesn't have the upside as other corners in this class to me. But Amir, run us through why you have Chris Johnson much higher than I do.
So Chris Johnson is one of those guys where the biggest issue for him, a lot of scouts are concerned about his 40. He doesn't have that like elite long speed when running with receivers. I think if a receiver has, a step and a half on him, he can maybe catch up. But for me, I just think he's physical. He has a high motor. He's productive. I believe he's a JUCO product. And so when you talk about in terms of adversity that he's had to battle, I love targeting guys like this, and he is a straight dog. He's physical. I mean, this dude was playing gunner on punt and was blowing up punt returners. And so I love him. He has great ball skills. I love that as well. And I think he's twitchy enough to break on routes. That long speed could be an issue, but he has a lot of twitchiness, and I love him. I think he's a safe pick. And this is one of my guys in this draft. I love him.
Yeah, I see. You got him at number 2 in the class. I'm going to just say that's going to be a lot higher than consensus. I think I'm more so towards consensus than Amir, but my goodness, my guy indeed for Amir. As Chris Johnson is coming out of nowhere, and I think he's going to test extremely well there for San Diego State. And don't be shocked if he climbs up these draft boards rather quickly. Now, at number 7 for me is David Igbinosun, or however you say his name, for the Ohio State Buckeyes. At 6'2", 195, I think he is great size for the corner position. He can, with his size, he can play boundary, but I just think he's very versatile. He's a great athlete. I think he has a very safe floor. The thing with me, nothing really pops. He's not really elite at anything. He's just good to great, which makes him a very solid middle round pick. Amir, your thoughts on the Ohio State corner?
I agree with everything you just said. I think out of all these corners that we're going to have today, I think he's the top 3 safest pick. When you talk about length, size, athleticism, he's really good on off coverage, which a lot of times you see like these bigger, longer corners, they kind of struggle with their footwork in terms of off. But he can play off, he can play press. He's aggressive. His tackling technique isn't like top of the line, but he's good enough to make tackles in open space. But you brought up a great point. He's not elite at anything really. I think if he goes and he shocks everyone, has a great combine. He can miraculously, test like a low 4.4, maybe like high 4.3, which might be a bit of a stretch. I think, I could really see his draft stock skyrocketing.
Yeah.
He's really good, versatile, like you just brought up. I think he'll be really good for a scheme where they just tell him, hey, go press up and play man to man.
Yeah, I could see him with Detroit, a team that just wants to be in your face all the time, and he could definitely be a rotational boundary corner there for Dan Campbell. And I just also think he has that mentality, right? That cornerback one mentality where whether they got beat on the throw or they actually play good coverage, they're always going to be in the opponent's face, which I guess could be a pro and a con. At number 6 for myself, and I understand I'm a lot lower on him than consensus, but it is Avieon Terrell. At 5'11", he's a bit undersized at 180, 185 pounds. We'll have to see where he measures out. But this is a guy that's a very high-level man corner. I think he's an elite athlete, but not only is he a great athlete, I think he might be the smartest corner in the class as far as him recognizing plays, route concepts, and he just breaks on the ball. And as some announcers would say, he at some points runs the route for the receiver, beating them to the point multiple times. He is a complete package. I just think that other corners, maybe I would prefer a bit more, and it could just be a little minute detail here and there. But for me, he's a top 50 player on my big board. And let's not forget, he has an NFL bloodline, which is always a positive as far as evaluating a talent. Amir, your thoughts on Avieon Terrell? I think you're much higher than on him than me. There we go, as you have him as your top three corner.
So this guy is at my number three, and this is another guy. He's also another my guy in this draft. This is a guy I've been watching since he was in high school. I've been a big AJ Terrell fan. Me being a corner, I study these DBs, and I think out of all the guys we mentioned, maybe between him and Pons, they're the two best athletes in this class. I mean, he can play press, he can play off, great feet, hips. He's gonna easily test mid 4.3s in my opinion. He's super athletic. He can play zone. His ball skills are amazing. The size is a major issue. His play strength is a major issue, like you just mentioned. When I watch him, I can kind of see Kenny Moore a little
Ooh,
bit,
I like that.
similar to the movements and athleticism. And it's like just like his brother, man. I mean, he's he's aggressive. He has the go get it mindset, right? His tackling technique is really good. He drives his legs, he finishes through tackles. Is that's the size of the issue. It's times where he tries to hit running backs and he stand them up. His running backs is the first guy in piles, in tackles, but they don't really move. I think that's going to be a major issue, but I think he checks all the boxes
Yeah.
as a corner. That's going to be good.
And that's why I'm skeptical. Maybe I do have him a lot lower than I should. But this is a guy that I think is the smartest corner in the class, and I
Mhm.
can't wait to see how he tests because he could be the corner that benefits the most from how they test, whether at the combine or a pro day.
Yeah,
Here
and
we go.
also too,
Go ahead.
kind of similar to why I have him and Chris Johnson both high. I mean, they both produce plays. Like I think last year Chris Johnson had like three pick sixes.
Yeah,
I mean, Avion Terrell, with him being undersized, he still, set the record for forced fumbles as a DB in a career in Clemson. I believe
yes.
last year he had like four forced fumbles, something crazy like that.
The
And
peanut
so
punch.
he produces plays.
Yeah. He's mastered the peanut punch, and I'm happy that you brought that up because I would have forgot to bring it up. Regardless, on your screen, let's recap at this point in the video. My 6 through 10 goes as follows. And so we have Avion Terrell at 6, Chris Johnson at 7. Amir has them much higher. David Igbinosun at 8, Colton Hood at 9, even though he's a volunteer. And at number 10 is D'Angelo Pons. Again, some of these guys are a lot better than maybe where they're ranked. We're just trying to translate it to the NFL level. Let's move into the top five, and I think this is where you could talk about cornerback one potential. Not only do they have safe floors, but I think they have very high ceilings. Jermod McCoy at 6 foot 195 brings the size and the physicality that NFL teams will covet, and they really go after here in the NFL draft process. The biggest question, and we'll get this out of the way because you're going to hear it 100 times before the NFL draft. Jermod McCoy missed last season with a pretty significant knee injury. And outside of being a Tennessee Volunteer, I don't think there's many concerns about his ability on the field. He might be the best athlete in the class as far as the cornerback position. I think when healthy, he's elite in man coverage. I think again he has the ideal size, and he could be a boundary corner at the next level. Amir, I'll ask you two questions here. One, how concerned are you about him recovering from this knee injury, and where do you have him as far as your rankings?
I think when a guy takes a year off, unless it's like a Jamar Chase, a guy that's already going to be like a bona fide top five pick in the draft, I think you're taking a major risk. Taking a year off of football is tough, specifically playing corner. It's a lot of rust. It's a lot of things you got to really lock back in and get going. And the knee injury is a major concern, man. It's like for him. He's a great athlete. He has a track background. I believe he played multiple sports in high school, and that was the big reason why people were so high on him throughout his years at Tennessee. But when I watch his tape, at times his explosiveness from track doesn't fully translate on tape and on the field, and that
What?
kind of concerns me a bit because when it comes to running with fast receivers, when it comes to making up space or being twitchy on breaks, coming off an ACL injury and then being drafted top 15 overall, or even going in the first one in general, and teams are really in desperate need to have you be the number one cover guy off rip, that's a major risk. And he has an extremely high ceiling, but the ACL injury is why I have him a bit lower than most guys.
And I think that's going to be the consensus. Again, if he was fully healthy and had another great year building off of his junior season, he could be a lot higher on this list. But we got to see how he tests. Once we see how he tests, once we see how he's moving in those drills, maybe we move him up to his rightful spot. Now, this guy, Amir, he kind of shot out of nowhere, right? He was the last cornerback prospect that I actually looked at, a guy that I missed somehow at the preseason, so to speak. I guess, scouting process. But Brandon Cisse, there for the South Carolina Gamecocks, a guy that's 6', 195. I'll get this out of the way. I think he has great size and length for the cornerback position. I think he checks all the boxes as far as his size and athleticism. But overall, there are some questions with his ability to be a lockdown man corner or zone corner. I think we've already talked about a lot of players that are better than Cisse in those departments. But overall, as far as being an athlete and a developmental pick, a guy that could be a legitimate superstar at the position, I think he can be that just pretty much based on his athleticism alone. I'll also say this, based on how he tests, I wouldn't be shocked if he sneaks into the end of the first round as a cornerback prospect. Amir, your thoughts on Brandon Cisse and him really sneaking on our draft boards at the last minute?
You brought up a great point. I think this is a guy who has a pretty good ceiling. He's an amazing athlete. I mean, the thing you can't really teach when it comes to corners, you can't teach that makeup speed. You can't teach when they're out of phase, when they're beat,
Good point.
and they can just hawk people down. I mean, you see consistently throughout his tape where guys will have a step on him, and he closes that gap instantly. He has length, so he's really good at hand fighting, catching back up in space. You kind of brought up a great point. His zone isn't as amazing. His ball skills compared to some of the top guys aren't great. But if he goes into a system where they develop him, they use his length
Right.
to size.
Yeah.
I think he's going to test amazing at the combine. I mean, this is going to be a sneaky pick, a great pick.
A team like Buffalo could use a Cisse. You know, they always love drafting these I guess kind of raw prospects, and hopefully they turn out good. But Buffalo needs that corner on the boundary because Trey White is only getting older. I don't know. That just makes sense to me because Buffalo's at the tail end of the first round and they need help on that defense. At 4 for me and 5 for Amir, just to clarify. Now let's go into my top 3. Chandler Rivers is, to me, might be a my guy. And that's coming. That might be a bit of a shock because I am a big component of if he's undersized, he might not be ranked as high. And he definitely has a component of that where he is 5'10, 185. He's a bit short and he is a bit light as far as, some other corners in this class. But I think he's a potential my guy as far as I think this dude could be a star at the next level because I do think he has the ability to win in man, in zone. I think as far as when you look at corners and you look at their ability to play man at a high level and zone at a high level, the most complete guy to me might be Chandler Rivers. I think he's an elite athlete, has great ball skills. The questions resolve around him being undersized, going into the next level, playing on the boundary. Like, can you imagine him going up against an A.J. Brown? It's a bit of a mismatch, even though he would be your cornerback 1. But I do think he has the potential to be an island corner, and I definitely think he can be a top half of the first round kind of a pick if a team loves his tape and if he does test well. Amir, give me your thoughts on Chandler Rivers because you love him just as much as me, but you're ranking him just a few spots under.
I love him. And so I have 5 guys over him. He's at my number 6. The one guy that's in that top 5 is Chris Johnson. That's more of a my guy pick. That's why I have him so high. But other than that, I think the guys above him are a lot safer picks. And he's great. I think what he brings, that versatility, like you just mentioned, outside, slot, off, press. He has great instincts in zone covers. I mean, like earlier I was watching a play. I forgot who it was against, but he was in the slot. He was an underneath zone defender. He feathered, baited the quarterback, picked the ball off. And that's stuff you can't really teach. And, when I watch him, I kind of see Mike Sanders still a little bit. That versatility,
Okay.
being able to have him inside and outside, the size is an issue. And not even just the size, the length. I just think, when you play press in the boundary and you don't really have much length, that's going to be a very, very big deficiency. But, I mean, you bring a guy like this in, he could be a consistent third down DB, or if a guy goes down, I mean, you can literally just plug him in there and he'll play right away. I like him a lot.
I gotta ask you this question. I don't know how we got this far into the video without me asking. Remember how you played, your play style, your strengths, your weaknesses. Who out of these prospects, who reminds you the most of yourself? Not that this is important for today's video, but hey, not often you get to talk to a collegiate cornerback. So run me through it. Who do you think reminds you the most of yourself?
Out of all the guys that I've watched, Jermod McCoy reminds me
I love it.
of myself. I think he's definitely a better athlete in terms of explosiveness, but in terms of loving to play press man, being physical at the line, using his size, that's what I did. At my school, we ran a lot of press quarters. I love playing press in the boundary, and what we used to do was the boundary corner, he plays man to man the entire game with no help. And so I love playing press, just like Jermod McCoy. And so when I watch myself, it's similar to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamal McCoy, like we mentioned, has a very high ceiling. A bit of a risky pick with his injury history, but I can second that as far as what we've seen on tape from Amir. Let's go. Number two for me, and we talked about this before the show, before we hit record on today's episode, that I tend to lean more towards the safer prospects at the cornerback position. And that's simply because, well, I'm more, I guess, confident in other positions. But Malik Muhammad, I think, is one of the safest corners in this class. I think he's very smart. I think he brings good size, and he's a very technically sound corner. I think he does excel in zone coverage more so than man, but he has great anticipation. He knows when to break on routes, when to sit how to read a quarterback's eyes. I think he was one of the clear lone bright spots on that Texas defense because they had a bit of a down year. But ultimately, I don't think he has the highest ceiling. I think he's just a very safe floor, kind of a high ceiling player that could go in the first round if a team just needs that final piece to the puzzle to really put them into that next echelon of teams. Amir, your thoughts on the Texas product, and why are you a little bit lower on him than me? Not to say that you don't like the player.
So I know I sound like a broken record, but this is another guy who is an extremely safe pick.
Yes.
I just think for him, I mean, he's extremely disciplined. When I watch him, he seems like he's calculating everything before the play. When he's playing off, when he's dropping back in cover three, just playing his simple bell technique, looking at receivers. I have him at eight. He honestly could be moved higher. I honestly think eight might be a bit low now that I'm really looking at it. I just think the guys over him, they have a bit more athleticism and upside and a bit like twitchiness, I would say. But I mean, this is a dude where when you watch him, you know you're going to get a consistent corner. He's smart. He's technically sound. He isn't the greatest tackler, but it's like, you can always sort of work on those things and try to just up his ceiling a little bit. And he's not extremely flashy, like you have mentioned right there. Like he doesn't jump off the screen, but I think he's a guy that's extremely consistent and smart.
Yeah, I'm also looking at it. He's got about six armbands on each arm, so that is definitely a fashion choice there. Number two for me, I think it's just again I like the safe floor as far as cornerbacks. Amir sees the position in a completely different way, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that. At number one, this one's consensus. I think this might be the only player we have at the same exact spot, and it's Mansoor Delane at 6 foot 190. The worst thing about him is the fact that he's an LSU Tiger, and I'm a Gators fan. But hey, that goes to show how good and great of a prospect that Mansoor Delane really is. If a Gators fan is putting his bias aside and putting him at number one, I think he's a very polished, true boundary cornerback one at the next level. And I know the cornerback position, more so than most positions, it takes a year and a half for these guys to really start finding their consistency, hitting their stride, because it's a very difficult position to play against the Devontae Adams, Puka Nakuas of the world. And you're asking a young 21-year-old to go out there and guard these Hall of Fame level players. So it takes time for these guys to hit their stride. I bring that up to say I don't think there's going to be that waiting period with Mansoor Delane. I do think he's very good in man and zone coverage. He's going to be a top 10 pick in this draft, and that I guess could also be a downside to the prospect because if you like him, you're going to have to love him, and you're going to have to take him in the top 10 because he's not going to last into the middling part of the first round. Amir, your thoughts on Mansoor Delane? We both have him as our number one corner.
I think he's the consensus number one. Combination of safe floor, high ceiling. He has no traits that's really a big knock to him. I think he's a great athlete. A lot of scouts, they're really concerned about his arm length. It's not extremely long, but it's like, I mean, this dude, he can play off. He can play press. You can even teach him how to play in the slot. He's great in
Yeah.
man, zone. I mean, he literally does everything. And you just brought it up. A lot of times you have to wait for quarterbacks, for a season, maybe even a season and a half, and they struggle right away. I mean, we're watching Terry Arnold. He's about to
Yes.
go into year 3, and that's a major issue. But Mansoor Delane, he's going to be a good quarterback off rep. You can seriously draft him top 10 and have him be your CB1 right away. I think he's great and he's physical.
Yeah, and that's another guy, Interion Arnold, and that was a great point where coming into the draft that year, I had him neck and neck with Nate Wiggins, where I had, on one day I could say Arnold was the best and vice versa. But I thought he was the safest cornerback prospect. And like you mentioned, we're 3 years in and he still has those concerns. Sometimes those guys just don't translate. And when you think about, go back in time, when you think about a guy like Jeff Okudah, everybody was super excited about Jeff Okudah. He checked all the boxes athletically, as far as his play on the field, and he really flunked out because sometimes these top end corners that you have to draft in the top 10 don't pan out. And that is definitely that's why I have as a con here potential draft cost, because when you draft a corner, you need to hit on that corner in the top end of the draft because it's a position where more often than not you're going to find value down the board rather than hitting that true superstar in the top 10. So definitely it is a risk as far as drafting some of these top end guys. But let's recap here. My top 5 corners as of now, again, we have a couple months into the NFL draft process. We will go through these positions once more before the draft. But my top 5, I have Mansoor Delane, who's a top 25 player on my board. Malik Muhammad, Chandler Rivers, and Brandon Cisse, same thing. Jermod McCoy is at number 5, could be a lot higher. Avieon Terrell, same thing at number 6. Then Chris Johnson, David Igbinosun, Colton Hood, and D'Angelo Pons. Honorable mentions, of course, at the top of the show. Amir's. The logos might be messed up when we get to 6 through 10, and that is entirely my fault. But run us through your top 10, starting with the top 5.
So I got Mansoor Delane at number 1. I think it's the consensus. Chris Johnson at 2. Avieon Terrell. 2 and 3 could be controversial, but those are 2 my guys, and I want to hit on either one of those guys. I have Jermod McCoy at 4. Brandon Cisse at 5. And then my 6 through 10, Chandler Rivers, Malik Muhammad.
That's D'Angelo Pons.
Yeah, D'Angelo Pons, Malik Muhammad, David Igbinosun, and Colton Hood at 10.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Now, again, I do want to throw it out there for you guys at home. We are going to continue to finish off this series, but let us know your thoughts in the comments section below as far as who's your favorite corner. Who do we rank too high, too low? I'll get down there and gladly converse with you guys. Also, it's a newer channel, so support the channel. Help us get to that next big milestone.